Rimuru x Arifureta. Fragments of Soul to be the strongest by Rimu-Chi. The midday sky stretched vast and endless above them, a brilliant expanse of deep blue unmarred by a single cloud, the golden sun reigning high as its warm rays bathed the earth below. The soft rustling of the wind carried the scent of distant greenery, mixing with the faint metallic tang of the vehicle they traveled in. It was a serene sight, a picture of peace that belied the weight of uncertainty pressing upon the hearts of those within the armored transport. Inside the van-like vehicle, the atmosphere was thick with a silent tension, despite the gentle hum of the engine and the rhythmic vibrations beneath them. The interior, built with a balance of functionality and comfort, boasted reinforced steel walls lined with various weapons and emergency supplies, while the seats, arranged in a way that maximized space, were cushioned well enough for long travel. The air carried the faint scent of leather and metal, mingling with Yu's sweet floral fragrance and Shei's faintly wild, fresh scent. At the driver's seat, Hajime sat with a cold expression, his golden, mechanical eye flickering with a dull glow as he focused on the road ahead. His hand gripped the wheel firmly, but his posture remained relaxed, a contradiction that only those who truly knew him could decipher. He was alert, tense beneath his calm demeanor. Beside him, Yu sat, her eyes filled with quiet worry as she stroked Mayu's soft blue hair, the little girl curled up on her lap, dozing peacefully. Yu's touch was gentle, almost absent-minded, as if the repetitive motion helped to soothe her own thoughts. Next to her, Shei leaned against the seat, her usual cheer subdued, rabbit ears twitching ever so slightly as she gazed toward the back of the vehicle. There, seated further in, Tio Claris rested her chin on her knuckles, her golden reptilian eyes fixed on the ones who remained deep in slumber. She was unusually quiet, for once, no perverse remarks or teasing words left her lips. Instead, there was a deep contemplation in her gaze, an unspoken concern as she studied the scene before her. In the very back of the vehicle, Rimuru lay in a deep sleep, his normally smug and unreadable expression softened into one of complete stillness. His silver hair glowed faintly under the soft light within the vehicle, the usual arrogance wiped away, leaving only an unsettling stillness. Shizuku and Elena, both asleep as well, were curled close to him, oddly drawn into his slumber. Their bodies pressed against his, their arms wrapped lightly around his form, as if unconsciously seeking warmth or reassurance. And then, Lilith, the youngest and most fiercely protective of all, was nestled close as well, her small frame rising and falling with each breath, her expression peaceful, yet somehow troubled even in sleep. Around them, an invisible barrier shimmered, an unbreakable field of energy that prevented anyone from disturbing them, a phenomenon that had lasted for 3 days now. 3 days since Rimuru had devoured the mindless dragon, 3 days since Shizuku and Elena had fallen unconscious beside him, and 3 days since Lilith, inexplicably, had followed them into that mysterious slumber. The weight of their absence was palpable, gnawing at the rest of the group like a silent storm waiting to break. Sheesh, it's been 3 days already, Shei muttered, finally breaking the silence. Her ears twitched as she glanced toward the sleeping figures. I don't like this, it's weird. Yu's fingers momentarily froze in Mayu's hair before she resumed stroking it. Rimuru is strong, she said, her voice quiet yet firm. But, this is different. Indeed, Tio murmured, shifting slightly in her seat. To fall into slumber for such a prolonged period, alongside those two, is quite peculiar. And the little princess, Lilith, being drawn into it as well, I cannot help but feel this is beyond mere exhaustion. Hajime remained silent, his jaw tightening as he listened. Tio, Shei leaned forward slightly, her blue eyes narrowed, you've seen a lot of weird magic, right? Can't you tell if this is some kind of spell? Tio exhaled softly. If it is far beyond anything I have encountered before. This is not a curse, nor does it seem to be the effect of Rimuru's own magic. It is something else entirely. Papa, Mayu's small voice, barely above a whisper, drew their attention. The little girl clutched Yu's sleeve, looking up at Hajime with worried blue eyes. Uncle Rimuru will wake up, right? Hajime's grip on the wheel tightened momentarily before he forced himself to exhale through his nose. Yeah, he said, his voice steady and certain. He's too damn stubborn to stay down for long. Yu nodded. Still, I do not like this. No one did. The thought that even Rimuru, someone who had always seemed untouchable, indomitable, could be this vulnerable, even if only temporarily, was unsettling. And then, the barrier shattered. A sudden wave of pressure filled the vehicle, a ripple of energy dispersing into the air. Hajime slammed the brakes. TCH. The first to stir was Lilith. Her eyes snapped open, glowing faintly as she let out a small, confused sound. She blinked, sitting up slowly, her tiny fists rubbing at her eyes before her gaze fell upon Rimuru, still asleep, and the two women wrapped around him. For a moment, she stared. Then, her small brows furrowed deeply, and her tiny hands clenched into fists. Quote. Lilith crawled onto Rimuru's chest, puffing out her cheeks in clear displeasure. Mommy Elena. Mommy Shizuku. No fair. Daddy is mine. Hajime nearly choked. Shizuku and Elena stirred, slowly waking up, their faces barely inches from Rimuru's. Shizuku's eyes blinked blearily, her cheeks heating up as she realized their compromising position. Elena, meanwhile, took a moment longer before she slowly smirked. Oh, how bold of me. Lilith, however, was having none of it. No. Daddy is only for me. No stealing daddy's attention. She pouted, smacking tiny fists against Rimuru's chest. Shizuku, flustered beyond belief, attempted to defend herself. Lilith, that's. Elena, however, only chuckled. Fufu, are you jealous, little princess? Lilith puffed her cheeks even more. Daddy is mine. And then, a slow inhale. A shift in the air. A familiar presence. Rimuru's eyes fluttered open, his crimson gaze sharp and piercing, as if he had never been asleep at all. Silence fell over the group. Lilith immediately brightened. Daddy. She threw herself at Rimuru's neck, hugging him tightly. Rimuru, still somewhat dazed, blinked once before a smirk pulled at his lips. Morning, my little princess. Lilith rubbed her cheek against him. I missed you, Daddy. You, Shay, Myu, and Tio exhaled in relief. Hajime, arms crossed, scowled. Took you long enough, bastard. Shizuku and Elena stared at him, unreadable emotions in their eyes. And Tio. She licked her lips, grinning. Ah, Master's voice upon awakening is like honey to my ears, how I wish you'd whisper something filthy to me first thing in the morning. Everyone. Shut up, Tio. Lilith pouted, her tiny hands gripping his clothes. No fair. You slept for so long. Mommy Elena and Mommy Shizuku wouldn't let me wake you up. Shizuku, her face still flushed from waking up practically entangled with Rimuru, immediately raised her hands in defense. Hey. It's not like we were stopping you on purpose. Elena, on the other hand, merely smiled, her golden eyes glimmering with amusement. Fufu, now, Lilith, Daddy needed his rest. But I suppose, sharing him won't be so easy anymore, Lilith huffed, her tiny brows furrowing. No. Daddy is only for me. No stealing Daddy's attention. She smacked her small fists against Rimuru's chest in a childish show of dominance. Rimuru chuckled, amused. My, what a demanding little princess I have. His cold, arrogant smirk returned as he tilted Lilith's chin up with a single finger. What should Daddy do if his cute daughter won't share? Lilith puffed her cheeks even more. HMPH. If they steal Daddy, I'll steal Daddy too. Shizuku and Elena stared at her, momentarily at a loss. Meanwhile, Hajime, having watched this chaotic scene unfold, finally let out an exasperated sigh. TCH, took you long enough, bastard. His golden, mechanical eye flickered as he leaned back against his seat, arms crossed. So, mind explaining what the hell happened? You, Shizuku, Elena, and Lilith were out for 3 days straight. At that, the entire vehicle fell silent. You, Shay, and Tio turned their attention to Rimuru, their expressions filled with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Rimuru stretched lazily, seemingly unfazed by their stares. Then, with a smirk, he spoke. Well, let's just say I had a bit of an unexpected evolution. Hajime narrowed his eyes. Evolution. Rimuru's smirk deepened, but his gaze grew sharper. I'm a dragonoid now. For a moment, no one reacted. Then, Tio's entire body jerked, her golden eyes wide with sheer disbelief. Impossible. It was the first time she had spoken without her usual perverted tone. Master, she murmured, her voice uncharacteristically serious. Becoming a dragon is one thing, but to evolve into one. That defies all logic. Rimuru shrugged. Yeah, well, I don't exactly play by the rules. Hajime clicked his tongue. TCH. And what does that have to do with them? He gestured towards Shizuku, Elena, and Lilith. Rimuru exhaled, finally glancing down at the small girl still clinging to him. It seems whatever triggered my evolution, affected them too. Shizuku blinked. Wait, you're saying. Elena smirked, resting a finger on her lips. Era, does that mean we're dragons too? Lilith's violet eyes sparkled. I'm like daddy. Rimuru's silver eyes glowed faintly as he ran a hand through his silver hair. Yes, and no. That cryptic response only deepened the confusion in the air. The hell does that mean? Hajime frowned. Rimuru sighed, deciding to explain. Lilith was already a dragonoid human hybrid. But now, she's a complete dragonoid. Lilith beamed, her small hands tightening on his shirt. That means I'm really the same as daddy now. Yay. Shay tilted her head. Wait, so that means. Rimuru chuckled, his silver gaze locking onto Shizuku and Elena. Congratulations. You two are part of the family now. We're the same race. Silence. Then, Shizuku froze, her entire face turning red. Wait. What? Family. Elena, on the other hand, placed a hand on her hip, smirking playfully. Fufu, my. That means we're officially connected, doesn't it? You, sitting quietly until now, finally spoke. Family. Her golden eyes flickered, unreadable. Shay pouted. That's kinda unfair. Tio, having recovered from her initial shock, suddenly grinned like a predator. Oh my. Master, are you suggesting that these two lovely ladies are now your destined mates? Shizuku choked. It's not like that. Elena merely laughed. Oh, but would it be such a bad thing? Lilith pouted again, tugging at Rimuru's sleeve. Daddy, they're being weird. Rimuru smirked, resting a hand atop Lilith's head. Oh, they've always been weird, princess. You're just noticing it now. Lilith pouted harder. Hajime, clearly exhausted, pinched the bridge of his nose. TCH. So basically, they're all dragons now. And you're saying that means they're your family. Rimuru nodded casually. That's right. MYU, who had been listening the whole time, suddenly brightened. Yay. That means big sister Lilith is really my sister now. Lilith gasped dramatically, turning to MYU. Sister. MYU clapped excitedly. Sister. The two giggled, clearly delighted at their newfound familial bond. Meanwhile, Yu simply sighed, resting her chin on her palm. This group is getting more chaotic. Shay, tilting her head, muttered, if Rimuru is Hajime's brother, does that make us his sister-in-laws? Tio, grinning like a devil, leaned in. Oh my. Does that mean we should be calling Master our big brother too? Rimuru snorted. Not happening. Just as the conversation seemed to be settling, Hajime suddenly slowed the vehicle. His golden eye flickered, scanning the horizon. We're almost at the town next to Orcus Labyrinth. At that moment, Rimuru's expression darkened. His crimson eyes glowed ominously, his smirk vanishing. A sudden, suffocating pressure filled the vehicle, making even Tio stiffen. Shay shivered. Rimuru. Rimuru's voice was quiet. We're heading there. His eyes narrowed coldly. Didn't say anything. The city next to the Orcus Labyrinth was a small yet bustling settlement, its existence owed entirely to the dungeon's treasures and the adventurers drawn to its depths. Wooden and stone buildings lined the cobbled streets, filled with merchants selling supplies, blacksmiths forging weapons, and taverns filled with drunken warriors boasting of their exploits. The air carried the scent of fresh bread from a bakery mingled with the metallic tang of blood from the nearby adventurers' guild. Despite its lively atmosphere, there was a lingering tension. Whispers of the horrors lurking within the labyrinth kept the people wary, their gazes filled with a mix of greed and fear. Hajime walked through the streets, his cold amber eyes scanning the city, MYU nestled securely in his arm. Her small hands clung to his coat as she peeked at the unfamiliar surroundings with curious blue eyes. Shay, Yu, and Tio walked beside him, their presence a stark contrast to the wary glances thrown their way. Behind them, Rimuru followed, his arms occupied with three passengers, Lilith, Elena, and Shizuku. The little girl in his grasp, Lilith, nestled against his chest, gripping onto his collar as if afraid to let go. Rimuru's cold expression betrayed no emotion, but his crimson eyes flickered with something dark as he took in the city around him. A place like this, filled with adventurers who thought themselves strong yet were nothing more than fodder in the face of true power, was nothing more than a stepping stone. Hajime, lost in thought, felt his mind wander to the past. The promise Kaori once made to him, that she would protect him, played in his memory, but it brought no comfort. Instead, the memory soured, twisting into the betrayal that led to his fall into the depths of the labyrinth. His grip on MYU tightened, his jaw clenched, and his expression darkened. Noticing the shift, tugged at his coat. Papa. What's wrong? Hajime didn't answer immediately, only letting out a breath before muttering, it's nothing. Yu and Shay, however, weren't so easily fooled. Yu's golden eyes held a knowing look as she reached for his sleeve. Hajime, you don't have to carry it alone. Shay nodded, her rabbit ears twitching as she gave him a soft smile. That's right. No matter what happened before, we're here now. We love you, you know. Hajime exhaled, shaking his head. TCH. You two really don't know when to stop. Yu smirked. That's right. Meanwhile, behind them, Rimuru's eyes glowed red. Lilith, ever perceptive, looked up from where she clung to his chest, her crimson eyes mirroring his. Daddy, why do you look so mad? Rimuru's gaze softened as he looked at her. He reached up and brushed a strand of her hair away, his voice surprisingly gentle. It's nothing, princess. Just bad memories. Elena, standing beside him, frowned slightly. You're thinking about them, aren't you? Rimuru didn't answer immediately. Instead, he clicked his tongue and looked away. Shizuku sighed, crossing her arms. You always do this. If it's bothering you, you should talk about it. Elena smirked, her voice playful as she leaned closer to Rimuru. Or is our cold and arrogant master too proud to admit he has feelings? Rimuru scoffed, his lips curling into a smirk as he lazily draped an arm over both their shoulders. I have plenty of feelings. I just don't waste time on things that don't matter. Shizuku rolled her eyes, but the faint blush on her cheeks betrayed her usual composure. Lilith, however, didn't approve of the proximity and pouted, reaching up to push them away from Rimuru. No. Daddy is mine. You two are bad mommies, always trying to steal him. Elena chuckled while Shizuku sighed in defeat. Lilith, we're not stealing him. Rimuru smirked, pressing a kiss to Lilith's forehead. That's right, princess. No one's taking me from you. Lilith grinned triumphantly, snuggling into his chest. Hajime, having overheard their exchange, sighed and turned to Rimuru. Before anything else, we should gather supplies and get information about the labyrinth's current state. Rimuru exhaled, giving a lazy nod. Yeah. With that, they made their way to the Adventurers' Guild. The guild was lively, filled with adventurers boasting about their exploits. The receptionist, a polite young woman, greeted them and quickly left to inform the guild master of their arrival. After a few minutes, she returned and led them to his office. The room was decorated with large bookshelves, trophies from past battles, and a heavy wooden desk with maps and documents strewn across it. The guild master, a burly man with a thick beard and sharp eyes, sat behind it. He gestured to the seats before him. Have a seat. Hajime sat down, placing Myu in his lap. Rimuru took the seat next to him, Lilith perched possessively in his lap. To his left, Shizuku and Elena stood, and to Hajime's right, Yu, Shay, and Tio remained standing. The guild master leaned forward, his gaze sharp. Introduce yourselves. One by one, they did. Hajime, short and blunt, Hajime Nagumo. Yu, her voice calm, Yu. Shay, cheerful, Shay Haulia. Tio, smirking, Tio Cluris, a devoted servant to my young master and my most esteemed master, Rimuru. The guild master blinked at her introduction but said nothing. Rimuru leaned back lazily, his voice dripping with arrogance. Rimuru Nagumo, and this little princess in my lap is Lilith. Lilith grinned. I'm Lilith. And my daddy is the best. The guild master raised a brow but nodded as Hajime handed him a letter from Furin's guild master. He read through it, his expression shifting. So, you defeated a dragon and wiped out 60,000 monsters single-handedly. The guild master shook his head in disbelief. I've never heard of anything like this, but I trust my old friend's words. Before he could say more, the door burst open. A young man with short black hair stumbled inside, out of breath. Emergency. Demon inside the Orcus labyrinth. The guild master frowned. Who are you? Hajime narrowed his eyes. Been a while, huh, Endo? The guild master turned to Hajime. You know him, Nagumo. Hajime nodded, while Endo, still panting, looked between him and Rimuru. Nagumo. No way, you're really Nagumo. Hajime crossed his arms. I changed a bit, but yeah. Endo then turned to Rimuru. Rimuru, you're here too. Rimuru simply looked away, uninterested. Endo's gaze landed on Shizuku. Shizuku. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Just sit down and explain the situation. The guild master nodded. Go ahead, kid. Endo, catching his breath, finally spoke. Our classmates are in danger. They're trapped inside the labyrinth. We need your help. Rimuru leaned back, unimpressed. Forget it. Silence fell. Endo's expression twisted in shock. But Rimuru, they're our friends. Your friends. Rimuru didn't answer. Shizuku sighed. Endo, sit down and explain everything. With a heavy breath, Endo finally sat, and the room grew tense as he prepared to speak. Then he began. Flashback. The 90th floor of the Orcus labyrinth was nothing like the upper levels. The walls, once smooth and refined, had become jagged and fractured, with ominous red veins pulsing faintly like the labyrinth itself was alive. A thick, oppressive air lingered, making every breath feel heavy. Pools of unknown black liquid seeped from cracks in the stone, emitting a foul, sulfuric scent. The torches along the walls flickered weakly, casting eerie, distorted shadows. Kaori, Kuki, Suzu, Eri, Daisuke, Reri, Ryutaro, and Endo walked cautiously through the labyrinth's corridors. The silence was unsettling, broken only by the faint echoes of dripping water and the distant growls of unseen creatures. Suddenly, Kuki knelt down, examining a fresh stain of blood splattered across the stone. His brows furrowed. This is the 5th time we've seen monster blood. Suzu, gripping her wand, looked around warily. Who could be killing them before we even get here? Eri crossed her arms. I have a bad feeling about this. Reri nodded in agreement, her grip tightening on her staff. Me too, something isn't right. Kuki clenched his fists. We can't turn back now. We've come all the way to the 90th floor. We have to prove we're strong enough to stand on our own. Daisuke smirked. Yeah, this is our chance to show we're just as strong as that bastard Rimuru. Kaori, Eri, Reri, and Suzu visibly frowned at Daisuke's words. Though they had their reservations about Rimuru, they knew he wasn't someone to be underestimated. His power was undeniable, and the idea of comparing themselves to him felt foolish. Meanwhile, Kuki, Daisuke, and Ryutaro shared a look of agreement. None of them liked Rimuru, especially after hearing from the demon girl he had sent as his subordinate. To them, it was clear, Rimuru wasn't just strong, he was something beyond human. A demon lord. Endo, standing slightly behind the group, sighed to himself. They're getting ahead of themselves, this isn't just about proving strength. The group continued forward cautiously, but something shifted in the air. A sense of dread seeped into their bones. Ryutaru's body tensed. Something's coming. Kuki, Daisuke, and Ryutaro took the front, weapons at the ready. Reri activated a barrier spell, her magic forming a translucent dome around the group. Kaori readied her healing magic while the others tightened their grips on their weapons. Then, the green smoke appeared. The mist swirled unnaturally, spreading across the corridor like a living entity. The group instinctively backed up, their eyes scanning the area for the source. And then, monsters emerged from the fog. They were grotesque abominations, twisted humanoid figures with elongated limbs, razor-sharp claws, and gaping maws filled with jagged teeth. Their red eyes glowed ominously as they screeched and lunged toward the group. Ryutaro roared, launching himself forward with a punch that shattered the nearest monster's skull. Kuki followed, his holy sword glowing with divine light as he cut down 2 creatures in a single swing. Daisuke moved with precision, stabbing through the chest of another beast before kicking its lifeless body aside. Suzu chanted rapidly, summoning a burst of light that incinerated a wave of monsters. Eri manipulated dark tendrils, spearing her enemies with lethal precision. Reri reinforced the barrier, blocking an incoming attack just in time. Kaori remained at the back, healing the minor injuries the others sustained, her hands glowing with golden light. The battle raged on, the group pushing forward with each kill. Despite the overwhelming number of monsters, they managed to hold their ground. Finally, as the last monster fell, silence returned to the labyrinth. The group took a moment to catch their breath. That was intense, Ryutaro muttered, shaking the blood off his fists. Suzu wiped sweat from her forehead. We handled it well, though. Just as they began to relax, an eerie laughter echoed through the corridor. A chilling voice followed. How amusing. Their eyes snapped toward the source of the voice. From the remaining green mist, a figure stepped forward. A woman with crimson hair and glowing red eyes, her lips curled into a sadistic smile. She stood with an air of absolute confidence, her long coat billowing slightly as she moved. Perched on her shoulder was a massive, predatory bird with white feathers and piercing golden eyes. The moment they saw her, they knew, she was not human. She exuded a suffocating aura of power. A demon. The group instinctively readied their weapons again. Kaori's breath hitched, but strangely, she felt safer than she should have. Something in her shadow pulsed, a faint yet familiar presence watching over her. She didn't understand it fully, but she knew one thing, it belonged to Rimuru's subordinate. The demon woman chuckled, unfazed by their hostility. My, such aggression. You children really don't know how to greet someone properly, do you? Kuki narrowed his eyes. Who are you? The demon smirked. I am Catalya, a high-ranking demon. And I am here for you, so-called, heroes. The tension in the air thickened. Kaori, Eri, Reri, and Suzu felt a cold dread settle in their stomachs. This wasn't an ordinary opponent. Meanwhile, Kuki, Daisuke, and Ryutaro gritted their teeth. They refused to back down. What do you want from us? Kuki demanded. Catalya's grin widened. What else? I came to eliminate you. But don't worry, I'll be sure to enjoy this. The bird on her shoulder let out a piercing screech, and behind her, more monsters materialized from the mist. The massive bird on Catalya's shoulder let out a piercing screech, and more monsters emerged from the swirling mist behind her. Their glowing eyes and grotesque forms made it clear, they were more dangerous than the ones before. Catalya, however, merely smirked and crossed her arms. You children are amusing, I'll give you that. Kuki gritted his teeth. What do you want, demon? Catalya chuckled and took a step forward. I have an offer for you, hero. Kuki narrowed his eyes. An offer. She nodded, her red eyes gleaming. Join me. Join the demons, and I will spare you and your friends. Serve under our banner, and you'll gain power beyond your imagination. The entire group tensed at her words. Join you. Kuki scoffed, gripping his sword tighter. Why the hell would we ever do that? You would refuse without even considering it. Catalya feigned disappointment, shaking her head. I thought you and your friends had at least some intelligence. Looks like I was mistaken. The male students, Kuki, Daisuke, and Ryutaro, looked disgusted and outraged. The female students, Kaori, Eri, Suzu, and Reri, were silent, fear evident in their eyes, but they refused to show weakness. Catalya sighed. Shame. I was hoping you'd be smarter than this. Her expression darkened. Kill them. The monsters roared as they charged, some of them suddenly vanishing from sight. Invisible monsters. Ryutaro shouted, swinging wildly at empty air. Daisuke grunted as something struck him from behind, sending him sprawling. Damn it. I can't see them. Suzu barely managed to dodge a clawed strike aimed at her throat. This isn't good. They're too fast. Eri muttered a spell, sending dark energy in all directions, trying to catch anything invisible, but it barely helped. Reri, sweating from exertion, managed to erect a barrier just in time to block a lethal blow aimed at Kaori. I can't keep this up forever. Kaori frantically healed the injured, her mana draining fast. Meanwhile, Catalya stood back, watching with mild amusement. Not bad, not bad. You're not completely useless. But rejecting my offer was idiotic. Kuki growled, slashing wildly as he barely avoided a strike. Shut up. The group was completely overwhelmed. The monsters were faster, stronger, and harder to hit. Their numbers didn't seem to decrease no matter how many they killed. Kaori, glancing at the battle, realized they wouldn't last much longer. She turned to Endo. Endo, she whispered urgently. He looked at her, startled. What? Run. What? Endo's eyes widened. I can't just leave. Kaori grabbed his arm. You have to. Go to Meld on the 80th floor and tell him what's happening. If you stay, we're all dead. Endo clenched his fists. Please. Kaori begged. Gritting his teeth, Endo activated his skill, stealth, and disappeared from sight. Before vanishing completely, he whispered, I'll come back as soon as I can. Then he was gone. Reri's mana was nearly depleted. She panted heavily, sweat dripping from her forehead. Catalya smirked. You can't stay in that barrier forever. Kaori hurried over, placing her hands on Reri's shoulders, transferring her healing magic into her. Hold on, Reri. Just a little longer. Catalya sighed dramatically. You humans are so stubborn. She lifted her hand. The massive bird screeched, and suddenly, all the injured monsters regenerated, their wounds vanishing instantly. The male students cursed, realizing all their hard work had been undone. The female students stared in horror, their faces pale. This is bad, Suzu whispered. Kuki gritted his teeth. She's toying with us. But Catalya wasn't finished. She raised her hand again. Inside the barrier, dark energy swirled, and panther-like monsters spawned right inside their defenses. Kaori's breath hitched. Inside, the creatures lunged. Ryutaro smashed one with his fist. Kuki and Daisuke slashed at others, cutting them down. But in the chaos, Kuki made a mistake. His blade swung wide and pierced through Rari's chest. Time seemed to freeze. Rari's eyes widened. Blood dripped from her lips. She staggered. Then she collapsed. Kaori screamed. Suzu fell to her knees, eyes wide in horror. Eri clenched her fists, trembling, unable to believe what she just saw. Daisuke and Ryutaro cursed, stepping back in shock. Kuki stood frozen, his sword still stained with Rari's blood. His hands shook. No, I didn't. Catalya smiled. How amusing. Kaori rushed to Rari's side, hands glowing. Stay with me, Rari. But there was nothing to heal. She was already dead. The group was breaking apart. We have to go. Kaori shouted, her voice desperate. No. Kuki roared. I won't run. Kaori slapped him across the face. Kuki's head snapped to the side, his rage momentarily stunned into silence. We don't have a choice. Kaori's eyes were filled with grief. If we stay, we'll all die. Kuki gritted his teeth, but after a moment, he nodded. Fine. The group turned and fled. Catalya let out a soft chuckle, watching them run. Foolish humans. With a flick of her wrist, she vanished, teleporting away. Meanwhile, Endo ran through the labyrinth's corridors, his stealth ability keeping him hidden. He finally reached the 80th floor, gasping for breath as he spotted Meld and his knights. Meld turned, noticing Endo's ragged state. What happened? Endo fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. The 90th floor. Monsters, a demon. Catalya. SSHE attacked us. We're completely outmatched. Meld's face darkened. Damn it. He placed a firm hand on Endo's shoulder. It's all right, kid. You did good. Now. Suddenly, Meld's expression shifted. His sword flashed. Slash. An invisible monster's body fell to the ground, sliced clean in half. Endo's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't even noticed it. Meld grimaced. They made it this far already. He turned to Endo. Listen to me. You need to go. Inform the guild. But, Meld shoved Endo backward just as another invisible monster lunged at him. Go. Meld ordered. Endo hesitated, but activated the teleportation circle. As he vanished, the last thing he saw was Meld drawing his sword, preparing for battle. Equals flashback ended equals. The guild hall was tense, the air thick with a suffocating pressure. Endo knelt before them, his body trembling, sweat dripping down his forehead. His voice wavered, filled with desperation and fear as he pleaded, his hands clenched together in a desperate prayer. Please, Rimuru, Hajime, please, you have to help them. His eyes darted between the two strongest people in the room, searching for even the slightest sign of empathy. But Rimuru Nagumo merely leaned back in his seat, an amused yet indifferent smirk playing on his lips. His crimson eyes, sharp as a predator's, flickered toward Endo with detached amusement. Seated on his lap, Lilith curled into his chest, her small arms wrapped possessively around his torso. Her crimson eyes, identical to Rimuru's, gleamed as she rested comfortably against him. To Rimuru's left, Shizuku and Elena sat, both relaxed but fully aware of the tension in the room. To Rimuru's right, Hajime sat in his usual composed yet intimidating posture. In his lap, Myu clung to him, snuggling close as she played with his coat buttons. To Hajime's left, Yu, Shay, and Tio lounged together, each of them waiting to see how things would unfold. Endo swallowed hard, shifting uncomfortably under Rimuru's gaze. Yet before he could continue his desperate plea. He. A childish giggle rang through the room. Lilith and Myu, despite the serious atmosphere, were playing together. Myu was tracing patterns on Lilith's hand, while Lilith whispered something to her that made both of them giggle softly. That laughter. That innocent joy. It clashed so violently with the suffocating tension that Endo snapped. What the hell is wrong with those damn kids? His voice echoed through the room as he slammed his hands onto the table. The guild fell silent. An eerie, unnatural stillness took over. The air grew thick. The temperature seemed to drop. Reality itself twisted as if recoiling from Endo's words. Yu blinked slowly. Yup, he did it. Shay winced. He really messed up now. Shizuku sighed, leaning against Elena. Well, Endo's finished. Elena smirked, whispering, this is going to be bad. And then, a soft, trembling sniffle. Lilith's bottom lip quivered. Her crimson eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Myu, who had been happily sitting in Hajime's lap, suddenly looked as if her world had shattered. Tears welled up in her ocean blue eyes, and she clenched her tiny hands into fists. Then, wah! The two girls burst into tears, their wails piercing through the silence. Hajime's eye twitched. His jaw clenched as he inhaled sharply. TCH, he immediately reached down, scooping Myu up in his arms, his expression softening as he whispered, it's okay, Myu. Papa's here. But Myu wouldn't stop crying. Endo flinched as he took an unconscious step back, realizing too late that he had made a grave mistake. And then, Rimuru moved. His eyes opened slowly. A crimson glow replaced his usual light red irises. A wicked, almost demonic smirk curled his lips. For the first time in a long time, even Hajime felt a chill crawl up his spine. Rimuru let out a low chuckle, dark and menacing. Tell me, Endo, Rimuru whispered, his voice thick with amusement, yet dripping with a terrifying weight. What kind of fool makes my daughter cry? The moment he spoke, Endo's legs nearly collapsed beneath him. His throat tightened. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Even the guild master looked visibly shaken. Hajime turned toward Endo, his crimson eyes narrowing. Slowly, with measured intent, he reached into his coat. Click. The sound of a gun being cocked echoed through the hall. Donner's cold barrel pressed directly against Endo's forehead. Hajime's voice was flat, emotionless. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Endo's breath hitched. His entire body was drenched in sweat. Please, two didn't mean. Shut up. Hajime's voice held no mercy. Myu sniffled in his arms, her little fingers gripping his coat desperately. Hajime sighed and holstered his gun before stroking her hair gently. There. Papa's here. No need to cry anymore. His tone was uncharacteristically gentle. Meanwhile, Rimuru reached down and lifted Lilith up, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Come here, princess. Lilith immediately curled into his chest, her little arms tightening around his neck. Daddy, she hiccuped. Rimuru smirked, ruffling her hair. That's right. You don't have to cry, my little one. Lilith sniffled once before tightening her grip on him, refusing to let go. From the side, Yu, Shizuku, Elena, and Tio watched in amusement. Shizuku sighed, placing a hand on her hip. You know, seeing them like this is weird. I never imagined these two acting like fathers. Elena chuckled. Yeah, but they're actually pretty good at it. Yu tilted her head. Hajime has always protected Myu. Now Rimuru is the same with Lilith. Shay nodded. It's kind of adorable, isn't it? And then, Tio. Tio let out a deep, utterly shameless voice, her golden eyes shimmering with pure ecstasy. Oh, how glorious it is to witness, my beloved masters embracing their true roles as supreme patriarchs. Shizuku and Elena facepalmed simultaneously. Tio, no. Tio licked her lips, her tail swishing playfully. Foo, but I cannot help myself. Seeing my master and young master being so dominant fills me with such indescribable pleasure. Ah, perhaps I should bear them children as well. No. The entire group shouted at once. Rimuru rolled his eyes, completely ignoring her as he focused back on Lilith. Don't worry, my little princess. No one will ever make you cry again. That, I promise. Lilith sniffled one last time, then nuzzled into his chest. Hajime, meanwhile, sighed, gently patting Mayu's back as she clung to him. You really are a damn nightmare, Rimuru. Rimuru grinned. Takes one to know one, little brother. The guild master, still pale, let out a deep breath of relief. Endo, meanwhile, had completely collapsed onto the floor, his eyes unfocused, his soul nearly leaving his body. It was a lesson he would never forget. Rimuru sighed, leaning back against the chair, his arms wrapped around Lilith, who still nestled against his chest, her tiny hands gripping his clothes tightly. Hajime, mirroring his older brother, adjusted Mayu's position in his lap before letting out a long exhale. Listen, Endo, Hajime finally spoke, his voice devoid of any warmth. His crimson eyes locked onto the trembling man before him, the weight of his words bearing down with brutal finality. You're mistaken about something. You, the others, everyone from Japan, none of you were ever my friends. Endo's breath hitched as if he had been struck. His lips parted in shock, but no words came out. You're just people I happen to share a classroom with. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less, Hajime continued, his tone unwavering, his expression cold. Not once did I ever consider you my friends. The words sliced through Endo's desperation like a blade. His body stiffened, his hands trembling at his sides. Hajime, that's not true. We what? Hajime interrupted, his golden eyes narrowing slightly. We studied in the same room. We talked a few times. That's enough to be called friends. Don't make me laugh. A bitter silence followed. Endo looked as if the world had crumbled beneath him. But before he could find his voice again, another voice, one far colder, far more detached, filled the air. I don't care about anyone except those who matter to me, Rimuru stated flatly, his crimson eyes glinting with something dangerous. He shifted Lilith slightly in his arms before standing up, his presence overwhelming, consuming the room. Lilith clung to him tightly, sensing his indifference toward the man before them. The ones I love, the ones I cherish, those are the only people who matter. Everyone else. They could die along with this world, and I wouldn't care. His words were spoken with absolute certainty. Endo staggered back as if physically struck. His lips trembled, his eyes wide with disbelief. You're serious. Rimuru's expression didn't change. I'll let them die with this world, he repeated without hesitation. The sheer weight of those words crushed whatever sliver of hope Endo had left. His knees buckled, his hands clenched into fists against the floor. No, you're lying. You're just saying that. I don't lie, Endo, Rimuru cut in sharply, his voice sharp as a blade. Hajime stood up as well, Myu still cradled protectively in his arms. His expression remained impassive as he turned toward his brother. If that's how you feel, big brother, then I feel the same way. Without another word, both brothers turned and walked away, their steps steady, their resolve unshaken. Elena immediately followed Rimuru without hesitation, her eyes filled with unwavering trust. Shizuku hesitated for a moment before turning toward Endo, sympathy flickering in her gaze. I'm sorry, Endo, she murmured before stepping forward and falling in line behind Rimuru. Shay, and Tio trailed after Hajime, their steps matching his perfectly. The guild master remained frozen, his expression unreadable. Endo, however, was different. He trembled violently, his mind reeling, his heart pounding against his ribs. And then, he moved. Endo ran. His feet pounded against the floor as he sprinted after them, his breath ragged, his desperation consuming him. Before they could step out of the corridor, he skidded to a stop before them, throwing himself to his knees. Please, he cried, his voice breaking. Please, I'll do anything. Just help them. Help my friends. Rimuru didn't even blink. Hajime merely frowned. Endo pressed his forehead to the ground, his entire body shaking. I know we were never your friends, I know we were never important to you, but please. They're going to die. I'll do anything, just help them. A beat of silence. Then, Daddy, are you the bad guy? Rimuru stiffened. His eyes flickered down to Lilith, who stared up at him with innocent confusion, her small hands gripping his coat tightly. You're not helping him, does that mean you're bad? Simultaneously, Myu tugged at Hajime's coat, her ocean blue eyes shimmering. Papa, are you the bad guy too? The brothers, both equally ruthless, both equally merciless, froze. Their greatest weaknesses weren't swords or bullets. It wasn't magic or overwhelming power. It was these two little girls. Rimuru exhaled slowly, dragging a hand down his face. Hajime let out a long, suffering sigh. Fine, Hajime muttered, shooting Endo a glare. But don't think for a second that I'm doing this for you. The only reason I'm agreeing, is because Myu asked me to. Endo's breath hitched. Rimuru clicked his tongue. Same here. If not for Lilith, I would have let them rot inside that labyrinth. Endo collapsed, his entire body shaking with relief. Thank you, he choked out. Rimuru turned to Shizuku and Elena, his gaze softer than usual. Can you two stay with you and Shay? Shizuku nodded immediately. Lilith, however, pouted, gripping onto Rimuru's coat tightly. Daddy, don't go. Rimuru smiled faintly, kneeling down. He gently stroked her silver hair. I'll be back soon, princess. Lilith hesitated before pressing a tiny, delicate kiss to his cheek. It's a good luck kiss for Daddy, she declared proudly. A chuckle escaped Rimuru's lips. Well, With that, I definitely can't lose. Meanwhile, Hajime handed Myu over to Yuan Shay. Stay here, he said firmly. Tio, who had been silent, suddenly grinned. Ah. To be entrusted with the lives of our precious princesses. My beloved master and young master have given me such an important duty. She voiced dramatically. Ah. Just imagining my master praising me fills me with such pleasure. Tio, no. The girls shouted at once. Tio giggled before shifting into a more serious expression. Worry not, master. I will protect them with my life. Rimuru nodded. And then, he turned to Endo. Both brothers exhaled, their annoyance clear. Lead the way, they said in unison. And with that, Rimuru and Hajime walked forward, heading toward the battlefield. Toward their so-called old friends.